Much for coming. I don't know if you saw the laundry list of dates they have on the door there, but they're going to be all over the state. They already have been in a number of locations issue. As Claiborne said, I am happy to be the co-author of the Wisconsin Secure Retirement Act. This is something that I've worked on with Senator Hansen for quite a while now. It was actually something that I contacted him on before I was in the legislature with him. Back in 2012, I contacted Dave and I said, hey, I really think we need to be articulating a positive vision for working people with regard to retirement and health care and pensions and other issues, because what Scott Walker has been very effective at doing is dividing working people and sowing resentment and pitting people against one another. And obviously I don't think that's in the interest of the state as a whole, and I don't think that's what people are looking for from their elected officials. So contacted Senator Hansen, and he announced that he was going to be introducing this legislation, and luckily I was elected at basically the same time, so I was able to author that with him once I was sworn in. So we've been working on this for a few years now. We've gotten some traction. AARP is very interested and supportive, but we really need to build that tent and raise the profile and continue talking about this issue as we move forward. So I'm just really excited that that this coalition is forming and that there's some real momentum building. The other thing, obviously, that I wanted to touch on, when you talk about retirement security, you can't talk about it fully without talking about Social Security. And unfortunately, we have a senator currently in Senator Johnson who demeans the program, who refers to it as a Ponzi scheme. And to me, Social Security is one of our proudest achievements as a people, as a country. Social Security is as American as apple pie, as baseball, as everything else. I mean, it's striking to me that somebody could be elected, to one of the most proudest deliberative bodies in the nation, in the country rather, and hold such negative opinions of a program that we should all be so proud of. Social Security is a covenant between generations. It's a commitment that we have to other folks in our country, and it's not something that that we should be demeaning and just tossing aside. And unfortunately, that's what we have currently with Senator Johnson. So what we're hoping for is that he will sort of reverse that stance and sign this pledge. I mean, this is the most non-controversial pledge I think I've ever seen, to say that you protect the guaranteed benefit of Social Security and oppose any attempts to privatize the program. To me, this is no kind of gotcha game. This is just asking for the commitment that I think a vast majority of Wisconsinites and U.S. citizens have for the program. So again, really excited that you came together to advocate for Social Security and secure retirement for everybody. I hope you'll stay engaged with this process as it moves forward, not just through election time, but beyond into 2017. When we have a new U.S. Senate, we have a new legislature convened, because this is going to be a battle that I'm going to be engaged in for a long time, and I hope that you will as well. So thanks a lot.
If we just take a few minutes for introductions, and it's super helpful for me because I want to get to know you all better. That's largely why we're out here doing this. So anyway, I'll start. I'm Claiborne Hill. I am the fairly new state coordinator for the Wisconsin Coalition for Retirement Security. And basically what that means is I work on behalf of 78,000 members. They're public employees, firefighters, public educators, state, local, county, municipal workers. And what we are doing is drawing a line in the sand, like I said earlier, and we are saying no more, right? We will protect the WRS, you will not take this away from us, and we will rebuild our organizations from there. So that's what we are doing while we're out and about talking to people about the WRS. A lot of people don't really understand the WRS or its value to the state overall. They understand that there are people who receive an annuity check and care about it, from a personal perspective, but they have no idea what it means for the state to have such an excellent, solid, stable, reliable pension program. And so that's what we're doing, is we're out talking about that because we need to be ready to take action to protect the WRS and if any future attacks come, which we know there will be some. And we also need to develop the largest group of allies to help us in that effort. So that's why I'm here today. And I don't know, would you want to start by introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Ann Sylvester. I'm a teacher at Green Bay West High. I've been there 24 years. So my entire career has been Tommy Thompson, QEO, and then Scott Walker. So,
Oh, what a happy
and I
story.
would, yeah, I'd very much like to be able to retire and know that our public pension is secure and there won't be another attempt like the Tommy raid. I really wish we could change the rhetoric in terms of both Social Security as well as the WRS, that somehow this is an entitlement, this is taxpayer money that you're receiving. No, this is our money that we've, over the years, have negotiated lower pay, so we would have this.
Deferred compensation, that's right. And does everybody here remember what Tommy Thompson did, what she's talking about? Yeah? Well,
And the raid, yes.
in the raid, trying to borrow, I think, right? Money from the WRF. People here, okay. Do you remember that too? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is the time we had a liberal Supreme Court that clearly overturned it. That's our problem right now, is we do not.
You just made my point for me. Thank you so much.
You're
We
welcome.
can't count on that.
Stole her talk.
You did. We're done now. We're done now. Thank you. No, I think you're 100% right. The Supreme Court is a problem for us, and so we have to make sure it doesn't get to that point, right? And so that's a really important thing that we talk about. 24 years, that's impressive. What do you teach?
U.S. history and sociology.
So I bet you've also experienced a handful of people, maybe at least a handful of people, retiring earlier than they needed to, or maybe had originally intended to because of their worries about the WRS?
A few who have retired early simply because they can no longer tolerate the climate.
Okay, right. And shockingly, we now have a shortage of teachers.
Oh, no, that's because our economy is doing so well. That's
Oh,
what our
that-
governor said.
Well, and I think they fixed it by changing your certification requirements, right? So that's all better now, right? People are going to flock to the profession, huh? Okay. So, Betty?
Oh dear. I'm Betty Karthik. I am a retired Green Bay teacher from Langley School. Teaching was my third career, so I started in my 30s, and before that I had no pension or 401k or anything like that, even though I was a secretary and an engine technician at Ford Motor Company for a year. But anyway, when I started in Green Bay, it was after I came back from teaching overseas, so I taught in all these private schools all over the world. So when I came back from overseas, get to get my master's for 2 years, that was a lot of investment, and then I started teaching in Green Bay. So luckily I got in 12 years before Scott Walker basically took my job away, and I had to retire because I was planning on teaching till I was 70 because I knew I needed more of that WRS money to survive. So well, it sounds crazy, it's true. So I really rely on that WRS check, even though it is less than my Social Security check. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to survive it the way I do. And I have very low rent, and I still have a problem making, ends meet. So I really appreciate the WRS being there, and obviously Social Security, which I paid into since I was 18.
I am so glad you're telling us a very real story and a personal story about how important the WRS is. And I think what has happened, unfortunately, is public employees have been under attack for so long now. People forget that we're actually talking about real people, and we're talking about real issues that they're going to have with that money that they invested. And I think PJ, that's what you signed with?
Pam.
Pam, okay, I'll call you Pam then. That's what Pam pointed out as well. It's your money, right? And I'm not sure why it's been so successful to develop this narrative that somehow there's something wrong with you guys because you have a little bit of retirement savings.
And the 12% they took away from teachers with Act 10 was our money, not taxpayer money. Those were our raises that we put in there. So basically, he took our raises away that had been negotiated, which should be illegal.
Well, I think he did it by creating a false sense of an economic crisis, right? And that's a little bit of a concern.
I think he created it by making a false argument that we had way more than the private sector.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And that they were paying for us.
Right. Taxpayers should.
But I don't know who they thought was going to teach their kids well without being well compensated.
Well, and now we have a shortage, right? So, I think, if you don't mind, here is a tell your story form, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, I never did that.
Yes, that would be amazing, because I think that's a really important story. There are a lot of people in your situation, and without the combination of their Social Security and their WRS annuity check, they would be living in extreme poverty.
Really?
Right, they wouldn't be.
I would have had to move. I mean, I know couples that were both teachers that lost their house over this.
Actually, write it down. I'll get that out there because it is an important message for people to hear about. So, Eva, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, I am Eva Roberson. I am a field specialist temporarily in the Milwaukee area. I spent 24 of my years at We Energies in Milwaukee, and so right now I'm in between getting another job and getting my retirement. So working on it right now, real story. But I've enjoyed spending time with these folks, and my sister was a state representative for about 8 years.
Who's that?
Her name is Barbara Toles from the Milwaukee area. As a matter of fact, last night I spent some time with Tammy Baldwin at a function, so I'm just very interested in making sure that we all have what we need if possible. My mother and father both passed away, and they were living below the poverty level from pension and Social Security. So, fighting forward.
Actually, and her sister Barbara is also a member of the WCRS and active on retirement security issues. And one kind of cool thing is she's working on writing an op-ed right now for us. And that's something that would be a lovely thing if anybody here was interested in writing something. We have a team of people that will help get our message out there, and that's a really important part of making sure our reach is as broad as it needs to be. So we're ready for whatever comes in the next budget cycle, right? So, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Martha Passarelli, and I'm a teacher also. And I'm not retired yet, but will someday, and will be hoping to have the same benefits under the WRS system.
How long have you been teaching?
About 100.
Yeah. And how many more years before you would ideally retire?
I don't have a... And I've seen the same thing with workload increase and more being taken out and so on and so forth. So, mandate. Teaching mandate.
I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for coming. And I'll pass the clipboard to everyone in just a little bit, but do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Judy Heiger, and I'm not a teacher, but my husband was in education all of his career, and it is a stability in our retirement. I was in banking all my life, and as I was just telling Martha, we had to live on my defined benefit, which ended because the banking industry left defined benefit plans a long, long time ago. So we'd be living on $165.48. However, I'm still getting that from my first day. Then there was no such thing. Earlier they contributed to 401ks. But prior to me working out of our home, my husband's job was our income. And it wasn't a whole heck of a lot, but it was very well worth it to us because we had health benefits and we had the security of building for our future. And as you said, there was definitely negotiation and giving up of pay raises, of keeping up with, just cost of living at that point that were given up specifically in everybody's mind for that. Then along came, Tommy first of all, but then Walker with this divide and conquer. And I see this group as a really verbal, shining light of showing real people they could be part of that. People who don't have the ability to have that security, which is provided by the best in the nation retirement system. And I think if we can speak out to that as well, you can do this too. I mean, farmers, independent people don't have access to a program such as this. And as you are saying, it should help focus on the importance of it and the ability of everybody to be doing what teachers have done for so many years and benefit by it. So at any rate,
I'm really glad you're here because we often talk about the people who are impacted by the WRS who aren't public sector workers themselves, right? And it's a huge number of people. So the WRS's reach is very, very broad, and I'm really glad you're here and that you understand the importance and value of the WRS from sort of both sides of it, right? From not having had that same opportunity to save for your own retirement where you worked into a healthy DB pension plan, and then also having the perspective of being, married to someone who is earning part of his compensation through his WRS benefit. So, all right, great. I'm glad you're here. And thanks for sharing that story. So real quickly, it sounds like almost everybody already knows, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but the differences here are confusing for some people. There's a defined contribution type of pension saving and defined benefits. And the WRS is a defined benefit pension program. And the primary difference is with the defined contribution, we're really talking about a 401k style pension program, and there are those people out there who are often trying to reform teacher pension programs, for example, and other public pension programs, saying their argument is that really you want a 401k style pension because they're so portable. So that's really all they can say for them, and really that's even not necessarily true, right? Because you can basically receive your annuity check from the WRS anywhere, right? You can be anywhere and they'll send you that check. And just because you leave public employment, as long as you were there for 5 years, well, the money is always yours. But as long as you worked for 5 years, you're vested in that and you will receive a pension wherever you are. So it's completely misleading to say that there's a portability issue here, but we'll get to what the heart of it is for people. But anyway, annuity is just your monthly payment that you get from your pension program. And then WRS, almost 600,000 folks participate in the WRS. And these numbers are all fairly interesting, right? The numbers of active or inactive workers, the people who are receiving an annuity check right now. But the biggest number that's the most important is the WRS holds $100 billion in trust as of last year. That is a lot of money. And as people from Illinois might know, and others, there are those who would like to get their hands on that money, right? And so we really have to remember that this is one of the areas that they feel like they're going to try to figure out how to get. So this is the way a defined benefit versus a defined contribution plan work out over the course of your retirement. The big reason that 401k style pension programs are inferior is that they have a lower rate of return and higher fees associated with them. And the difference is between 1 and 1.2% per year, generally speaking, but with the way that an investment compounds interest over time and grows, that actually is a considerable amount of money over the course of a 30-year career. So that makes a big difference. What happens with the defined benefit pension, like the WRF, is for much lower fees. You have a very large pool of workers who are investing that money and sharing the risks, and the return is somewhere between 7 and 8% on average per year. And that's significant when you're talking about over the course of a long term, a lot of years working. So you can actually look, you would be right here, right? 14 years, I think? Is that what you said? Or 12? Okay, there you go. There's you. Now, there's a difference. There's a difference even by the 12-year mark. If you had a defined contribution plan, you would have earned less over the 12 years. But it's a significant difference by the time you get up to about 30 years of investment. And so we've got a couple things going on here. So this red line indicates what the average defined contribution 401k plan rate of return. And somewhere in the middle here is defined contribution that's considered ideal. So its rate of return is as good as any of them, right? It's the very best. And then here's the difference. The blue line is the WRS or your average defined benefit plan. So that's a lot of dollar difference, right, over the course of a career. Now, the Department of Labor recommends that you retire with somewhere between 70 and 90% of your pre-retirement income. And Social Security is approximately 30 to 40% of what the Department of Labor suggests that you will need to have a secure retirement. And I don't know if anybody in the room here knows anybody who's retired on Social Security alone. I do. It's rough, right? You're living in poverty. And depending on the cost of living where you live, it could be extreme poverty. So what happens here is you take the 48% of your pre-retirement income, which is what your WRS benefit is if you have worked your 30 years, and you're going to be right where the Department of Labor says you need to be in combination with your Social Security payment. So both things are very important. We can't, retirement security for people in Wisconsin and WRS members also means Social Security needs to be protected and expanded. But this is the formula for calculating benefits as it stands right now. And the combination of these two sources of income in your retirement is going to make for not a rich, super wealthy, what do you call those people, like high rollers, or I don't know. That's not going to be you, but you're going to be secure, right? So here is what we're talking about, investment differences for your average defined contribution or 401k style plan versus your defined benefit plan, and then the very best 401k. Did you have a question? Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
I think
it's fine.
the other thing that's really important in that contrast between defined contribution and defined benefit is that defined contribution, you may be earning and putting away, but if you get mixed up with a very bad investment
You can lose
situation,
everything.
you are really, and who among us are really, really savvy in investing or knowing about your investment advisor at all times?
Well, and the other thing too is that you need to, so a lot of people who had a 401k savings plan leading up to 2008 and 2009 and the Great Recession, some people lost everything. And what ends up happening is if you are young enough and can keep your money in the market long enough, in theory anyway, you may be able to make that back up again, right? But if you're counting on that money anytime soon, you are in a terrible situation. And And so we have people that we work with, members of the Alliance and WCRF, who actually had to get other jobs. They had to get another job because they lost so much of what they had been saving in 2008 and 2009. And they didn't have the time to be able to keep their money growing over, a decade or however long they would need to do that. And I think the other component that's very important in terms of the distinction between a defined benefit pension and a defined contribution pension is even if you do as well as you possibly can, you have the ideal 401k, you have a finite amount of money. And there are a lot of people who outlive those funds, and they end up living longer than maybe they had planned for, and they are, in all likelihood, the most vulnerable people who are the least able to go out and get another job or figure out another source of income, and they actually run out of those monies. Whereas if you have a defined benefit plan, you have such a large pool of people investing together, you have a predictable annuity for life. And so you can take into account the fact that some people will live longer than other people, and everyone can receive an annuity payment for the entirety of their life, and that is a huge benefit. We're also talking about some gender disparities here. Women tend to be the folks who end up living in poverty in the very last years of their lives because their whatever 401k style plan they had wasn't enough for the number of years that they were going to live. So this is WRS contribution, right? About 16.3%, and half of that is shared, half is contributed by the employer, the other half by the employee, right? This is hard enough to bargain over, and you often have to give things up to get it, right? But when you're talking about a 401k style plan, if you want to end up with the same exact retirement savings, you need to invest 21% of your salary to receive the same amount at the end of with your employer that they put in 10.5%. Now, who thinks that there are a lot of employers out there who are willing to do that, right? There aren't. And so what we find is that most people aren't able to make up that difference, so they just end up with a much smaller retirement. This is what happens if you have the kind of 401k style plan you're talking about, where it's individually directed, you're totally on your own. You need to, on average, put away to be able to generate the same retirement securities, same funds that you would under a defined benefit. This is out of everyone's reach, right? There are very few employers who are going to contribute levels like that, and most people just can't afford to do it. So no matter what, you're going to end up with less. This is just a basic calculator for somebody at $30,000 a year and another person at an average of $50,000 a year. Any way you slice it, you're going to end up with about half of what you would have if you have a 401k style, your average DC plan, as opposed to a defined benefit plan. This is Seamers in Milwaukee, but almost all the benefit calculators look pretty close to that. This is a huge difference. Average income of $50,000 a year, you're going to lose approximately $150,000 a year, $250,000. Over the course of your career. Okay, history of the WRS. Is anybody familiar with it? No? I like telling this story. It's kind of fun. I like history. But anyway, AFSCME's first lobbyist, Roy Kubista. You guys know any AFSCME members? Yeah. There are a lot of them around in the state. This is something I think they're pretty proud of. Okay, so the first public pensions emerged in the late 1800s in the larger Milwaukee area. They were generally for public safety employees, so we're talking police and firefighters, things like that. And so there were some small public pensions coming into being then. In 1921, teachers demanded a pension program for themselves, and they got one. But what happened was everyone else had almost nothing. Whatever savings they could come up with, that would be totally on their own. But in 1943, AFSCME worked on lobbying hard to get all of these pension programs combined to create one larger public pension that would eventually be known as the Wisconsin Retirement System. It passed both the Assembly and the Senate, but the Republican governor, Walter Goodland, said, we really just can't do this right now. We're in the middle of a war. We can't afford it. Let's revisit this issue later. He vetoed the legislation. This woman, Ingeborg Sidwell, there's a story about her at the State Historical Society. She was actually called a scrub woman. I guess that was their official title. And there were about 7 or 8 of them, and they were cleaning the Capitol. And she was almost 80. She was about 79 years old. And she and her husband had saved money, like you're supposed to, right? They invested it in the stock market, and in 1929 they lost everything. He had, since then, he had died, and she was on her own, and she had no pension program and was unable to retire. And she lobbied the governor because she cleaned his office. She was able to talk to him, and she explained, she along with the other scrub women, basically marched on the governor and let him know that she didn't think it was too much to ask that she be able to retire for a couple of years before she died. And he really needed to ask the legislature to overturn his veto, which he did. And we think he was basically shamed into doing it because all of the women who went and lobbied him were very old at that point. They were all nearing or in their 80s. So he did overturn the veto. What's really important about this is the WRS was established with the exact same collective bargaining rights you have right now. And I know that we're in the middle of feeling the loss of Act 10 and the fact that we feel, the struggle to be able to move forward on issues that are really important to us in our profession. But there is a lot you can do if you come together with or without collective bargaining rights. And we are going to protect the WRS because it took decades to establish. And they could eliminate it in one fell swoop. In no time, they could do one of the things they like to do, right, which is announce something without a public hearing with very little notice in the dark of night. We must remain vigilant. But on top of that, we need to remember that there are a lot of good people who are feeling just as disempowered, and we don't need to necessarily. We protect the WRS, we protect Social Security, we reorganize, we rebuild, and we move forward. And that's, I think, very important. 2012, the governor let us know exactly what he was thinking, right? I'd like to change the WRS from a DB plan to a DC plan. So let's figure out how that can work. Well, unfortunately for him, he was required to use the same accounting firm that we have contracted with for a number of years. They do the audits for the WRS, and they knew it inside and out. 79-page report later, they said, don't touch it. Don't do anything. And this is important because he let us know exactly what he would like to do. And I don't know, does anybody have any ideas as to why he would want to change from a defined benefit plan that's working so well and we get so much national and international recognition around to a defined contribution plan?
We can get money. Give some more money away to his rich friends.
And very few DC
Ding, ding, ding,
plans,
ding, ding,
yeah,
ding, 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 ding.
very few DC plans have employer contributions that rival what's going on with the WRS as well. And then investing these DC plans could make Wall Street a lot wealthier than they are right now. And most of the special interests that are after public pensions really want ultimately to make money off of investing those 401k style plans. That's where the money ends up going, right? We take the same amount of dollars, and if you constantly cut a check to someone else to do the investing for you at a very high rate for a program you can't figure out on your own, right, because investing is so hard, that's what you end up with. This is interesting, though. If we just don't touch the WRS, this is like the only thing in this crazy world we live in right now that we know will be okay 50 years from now. And so we're very committed to making sure that no one messes with it. This is really important. 86% of those dollars stay right here. They're reinvested in local economies, and they are an engine for mom and pops all over the state, right? Mom and pop businesses, small businesses rely on this money. You need to make sure people understand that. This money actually stays here, gets reinvested, And this is a large chunk of money that's staying right here in Wisconsin. If we mess with the WRS, that's a problem. Here's one way that we don't often think of that would undermine the WRS considerably. You guys are familiar with the takeover plan, right? You guys probably like it,
We're
right?
familiar with those two.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about it, Betty? What they want to do?
Oh, that's Kuyanga and Darling, right?
Exactly.
They live in urban Milwaukee areas, and they are representatives in the assemblies, and they think that they have a better plan for, did I say urban? I'm sorry, they live in suburban Milwaukee, and they want to try to tell urban Milwaukee what to do and how to run their school system. And they also want to take over some schools, give away buildings, sell buildings, and be able to have control over things that a democratically elected school board should be deciding.
Pretty good summary. I'm not going to be able to do any better on that one. So I think the one thing that you also don't necessarily think about when you think about public education and privatization, right? I mean, obviously there's the public education implications, which are terrible, right? They can take up to 5 schools per year, I think, and they're starting with Milwaukee. But they would like to take this statewide, and this could be expanded to districts with any district in the state with over 15,000 students. But one thing that happens if they do this takeover plan, and right now they're in limbo, right? They would start taking over the first couple of schools in 2017, but they have been unable to make a move in that direction, and that's largely due to people, the exact same collective bargaining rights we were just talking about before, taking action in Milwaukee to try and stop this. MTA is working very hard on this issue. But every single time they take a school out of a public school system, they take workers out of the WRS, right? And that's to the tune of about $7,000 per year. And that ultimately and eventually will destabilize and undermine the overall health of the WRS. The public pension is a really important part of attracting and retaining good quality people. The implications are tremendous, and they're really far-reaching. So, but it's okay. It's all right. I don't want you to worry too terribly much, because this gentleman, anybody know Dewey Strobel?
Oh, we love it.
The legislator from, senator from West Bend. He is looking out for you. He really cares, and he wants to make sure that your pension is okay. He's very concerned about the public pension because it's being the, one of the best in the world isn't good enough for him. He really is looking out for you. Now, he didn't pay income taxes in 2009 or 2010. But he did receive an agricultural subsidy from the state. Because I guess, he's doing agriculture. Yeah. But he's like, trust me, I really care about the WRS. And what he would like to do, he's the one who keeps introducing legislation to change the age of retirement, to increase it by several years. He would also like to change the way that we calculate the formula for paying out benefits. So it would be based off of your 5 top earning years, not 3. And little by little, they're also I'm sure he had a hand in the legislation last year, or the attempt anyway, to change the way the WRS is governed. Do you guys remember that? Did you take action on it? Did people make phone calls? You were the best. Okay, and get ready to do it again. Keep them on speed dial, right? Because that's what they've learned. The best way, and we saw it with the DNR, right? If people are going to give us a hard time, what we need to do is take their people out, or the people are just being held accountable to the public at large, and we need to put our people in there. And that's how we're going to move this forward, right? And so, anyway, that's this little bullet point down here. There are lots of ways the attacks will come. We need to be prepared for all of them. Dewey Strobel will have hands in some of them because
That actually has helped.
Yeah, that's a tough.
No way.
One Wisconsin Now sent a drone up over his estate and took that photo. They're the ones who let us know how much he pays in income tax too. So
Oh,
We
do
have
you
that
have that on
today.
Facebook? Because I'd really like a copy of that
Same
to
here.
put around.
Yeah, it's on
Sure.
the One Wisconsin Now has
The One
like the
Wisconsin
whole,
Now Facebook page?
yeah, the
Okay,
meme
thank you.
about it.
Yeah, we should be promoting that
Should
too
do
though,
that.
because he
Yeah.
had a bee in his bonnet about the WRS, right? So anyway, these are some of the changes they wanted to make. A lot of them don't save the state any money at all, right? They're just harder on workers. Jim Palmer, who's with the Police Association, he made the point that the reason we have the retirement ages set the way we do is that people get hurt on the job when they work too long, right? And the longer you work, propose these changes, right? So this basically just debunks those things. We actually, one of the reasons the WRS is as healthy as it is because we do actually do what's called an annuity adjustment if we need to. And we smooth it out over a number of years, but after 2008 and 2009, people did take a hit. Their annuity payments went down. The overall health of the pension fund stayed strong because we're able to make those adjustments. We're just now pulling out of that, but no one lost everything like they did in a 401k style plan in 2008 and 2009. And that's the real value here. So we're pulling out of it, and annuity checks are now going back up again. And that's very important. From the floor. They never go below the floor. But anyway.
Question. Since you're funded better than the state of Illinois,
Mhm.
do you do the 13th payment
I don't know
to
what that is.
retirees?
I don't know what that is.
You
Is that like a bonus?
You get a bonus check.
I actually don't know. I don't know about that.
Each district here negotiates their.
Retirement fund system gets a 13th payment. At this time, they haven't
You
taken
mean
it
for a
away.
year?
Yeah, each year.
Oh,
You get a
I've never heard
13th
of that.
payment depending on your years of service.
I heard
It
of
could go from
before, but we
anywhere
don't
from
have
like
that.
20% of what you get to 100%.
No, we don't have it.
I think what might be happening is we get the annuity adjustment up. Some places with the COLA, we don't actually have a
So it's
COLA in the
not-
WRS, but nobody's getting a bonus
You're
check.
not getting like an extra check.
Not that I've heard of anyway. It's a complex program and I don't need to pretend I know every single thing about it. I don't. I'm still learning. I'm working with ETF and I mean a really well-run pension program is complicated and it has a lot of experts working on it. I've never heard of a bonus for stuff. I'm glad you guys are getting that. I think what we get is an adjustment though that ends up happening across the board for everyone equally.
You get it.
Oh, you get that too?
Yeah, depending on your years of service.
That's pretty
So what
awesome.
is that 13th payment based on?
Anything. You know, age of retirement years of service. They've got a formula.
What does it end up being on
Depending-
average?
I was in the police system, so I was civilian, so I'm at a lower rate than the sworn officers.
Is it the same amount you would get on your regular monthly check?
Depending, like I said. Yeah, because I'm new in the system, I got like about 20%.
At various times when people always grow and always expand and we would always make more money off of our investments and that downturns were unlikely, right? Because I think sometimes, I think about bargaining over, I mean, in a lot of public pensions, they don't have the ability to lower your annuity rate for those people who are already retired. They have to pay out the amount that they were earning at the time they retired, regardless of how the fund is doing over those years. And so that will actually, that's a problem for some pensions. And then depending on things like privatization and bringing fewer new employees in, they end up getting into trouble that way. I could imagine at one point there were some bargaining units who were like, what? No, we don't want annuity adjustments. That's not good. Yeah.
Isn't it true that our WRS payments, or whatever you call it, annuity payments per month, they can go up if we earn good money,
Mhm.
but they can never go down past a certain point.
They have a floor.
Right.
So they never go lower than the floor.
Protected.
Right. But the
But-
annuity adjustment, so in 2008 and 2009, the market, I mean the fund took like a 30% hit a couple of years in a row. People's annuity adjustments went down about 13% on average. A lot of people hit the floor. So, you know, the percentage you went down kind of just varies depending on what your floor was. But now they're coming back up. The last couple of years, we've had adjustments up instead of adjustments down. Now that's hard, because people with a pension are still living on a set amount of money. They have a very set budget, and that's not easy. But it keeps our pension healthy, because we were able to smooth it out over a number of years, and we have a lot of money in trust, so we can do that sort of thing. But it takes decades to build up to a pension that's able to do that. I have no idea what the impacts would be for a 13th check, but I meet somewhat regularly now with this ETF woman named Tarla Hunter. She's very helpful in explaining how the WRS works and how certain things have come about, and I will ask her about that. She seems like a very fiscally conservative person, so I don't know what she'll say. I wish I had known this before I bring the info to you, but I'll get in touch with you, okay? Anyway, this is what Dewey Strobel says to constituents who express concern about the changes he would like to make to the WRS. Don't worry. It's really important that we make these changes because these reforms enhance fairness for all participants. Not quite sure how. So he's talking about the floor, which is true, and he brings that up, but he would like to make changes so that we can remain fully funded. Even though if you don't touch it, we're fully funded for 50 years.
Oh, they always take credit.
Oh,
for the
yeah.
fact that we're fully funded as well.
Actually, that's a really good point. Does anybody remember the last time Scott Walker took credit?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to remind the group?
Do you want a specific date?
Well, he was at the Republican convention, right? That was one time recently.
I think in a debate he said it too. Did he?
Oh yeah, he did say it in a debate. You're right.
And I'm sure he said it at that conservative blah, blah, blah meeting we have.
Yeah, he's
But he also
often
said he
talking
could
about.
take on ISIS because he took on the public employees.
Similar groups, similar.
Oh yeah, they're very similar.
I saw in that letter there that Dewey Strobel said it's getting more expensive to run the WRF or something, so that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea
What
why
is
he
he talking
doesn't.
about? Yeah.
Why doesn't he have any obligation to tie that to facts? I'm not sure, but anyway, it's important that our narrative is always very clear, very strong, and we push back on these things, right? So here we debunk all of the things that he's asserting in his letter. We've gone through much of that already, but the point is it's actually just fine if we don't let him at it. So. Finally, last slide, I just really want to point out the fact that our campaign here going forward is twofold. Both pieces are very important. The first one is you will not back off and we will not let them change the WRS. We will protect it. We are not going to let them tinker with it. But on top of being ready to protect it, no matter what comes at us this coming budget, we really need to be talking about expanding pension opportunities for people in the state. The private sector needs a pension program run just as well as the WRF. They would be parallel systems. The ins and outs of it would be worked out by ETF. I'm not exactly sure how it would be administered at this point, but what this legislation would do would be to establish a path for creating a private sector public pension system in the state, and that would be huge. Farmers could participate, individuals could participate, and hopefully, ideally, all kinds of private sector employers would want to participate because they would need to in order to compete, right? Because this is going to be something really extraordinary. They're doing it in California. They started it in 2012. This is not a quick fix for retirement security issues right now in the state. Our public pension program is almost 75 years old, and it took until 1981 to finally get legislatively what we have now. So this would take some.
Do you have a question?
Well, one quick question, I should know this. Every person that's teaching in the public schools right now is automatically in the WRS, correct?
Correct.
So even if they're not, they don't join the union, they're still in the WRS?
Yes.
There are a lot of non-union WRS members.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure every single public educator, because some municipalities didn't opt in, but I think
By
it's
and
close.
large.
It's close.
Like,
Well, it's not every, so some municipalities, if you never.
so, we do this with 3 assumptions. One, that Social Security is a good thing, that we think it should be around for future generations. That's number 2. And number 3, that we want to take action. So, Claiborne does an awesome job getting into a lot of the details of WRS. Social Security is kind of a complementary plan, right? It's kind of more of it's a foundational piece, but it's also a complementary plan to the WRS. And we think that the people that come to these and interact with us, that they're proponents of these things, and that they want to take steps to defend them. So those are our 3 assumptions. Can everybody does anybody disagree with any of these 3 assumptions?
Oh,
All right, cool. All right, so a big piece about Social Security is that it works, right? So much like the WRS, and one of Claiborne's slides is things in search of a problem, right? Right, and so that's what a lot of socializing or privatizing Social Security has to do with, right? These things work, and so what they're trying to do is make them not work, so that then they can take the money and put them elsewhere. So one of the things that what's one of the ways that you know something works?
Nobody says anything about that.
Right? Right? So 165 million people on a monthly basis get money taken out of their paycheck and they don't even know about it. Right? They don't say anything about it. It just happens. It's a beautiful thing. It means it works. And then another 59 million on a monthly basis get money put into their bank account that they can then spend, right, in local economies. Much like WRS, right? The money stays where the people are. Of that 59 million, 41 million get the retirement benefit. Another 11 get disability benefits, and then the remaining are folks that get the benefits once someone passes away, right? So the next slide is going to kind of spell out that this is real money. But the point to be made, right, is that it works. You don't know about it, and therefore it really works. And then it gives 59 million people in theory, 30 to 40% of their retirement. The other piece I like to point out that you can tell when something works is that when you look at a program, the administrative costs are low, right? So 99.2% of Social Security, the funding structure and all of that, goes towards actual money out the door to people in the pockets. And only 0.8 goes to administrative costs. Like, it's extremely efficient. It doesn't just work. It's like a Model T, right? You don't have to you change the oil and the thing just keeps going. You want to know why well, you probably know better than I do, but why they changed the Model T? It's because they could sell more cars, right? You change Social Security so that then you can make money off of it by selling more things like it. All right. So the real aspect of it, right? So a retired worker, these are averages, $1,300 a month into their pocket from Social Security. Another one here is a widow or widower, $1,200, and then a young widow or widower with 2 children, $2,600. So one of the pieces to kind of take a look at, I think it's on the next slide. Yes, it is. All right. So a couple things here. One, only 68% of people working right now are saving for retirement. 2, what Claiborne just went over has it's half the cost of a defined contribution plan. And then 3, when we talk about when we talk about privatizing WRS, when we talk about we don't talk about it, but when they want to hurt WRS, right? When they want to hurt WRS, when they want to take money out of Social Security. This statistic, and I do this at all presentations, not just one where we're very gender heavy. The poverty rate for retirees is 64% higher for women than it is for men. So one of the cool pieces that kind of ties together Claiborne's presentation and this one is her comments that about the future AFSCME members that created WRS, right? So there was no retirement system, there was no retirement structure for them, and they were basically mostly female garment workers. And they banded together and created a public sector pension, right? And so what people are trying to do, right, is exponentially impacting women. These cuts are, they're not directed at, but they have a greater impact on the female population. All right, so this is where it turns a little political, as if it doesn't, right? Okay, so there's a couple of people that are saying things about Social Security, and during the primary, Donald Trump was one of them, and he liked it. And then around about when he started to secure the nomination, his campaign came out and said that, and you know, we hope this never happens, but a Trump administration would take a look at entitlement programs. You know, they'd shuffle the paper, and they'd start to see what they could do in a bipartisan way. So, one of the things that's kind of thematic throughout these next couple of quotes is, this is, while it's not saying anything, it's also saying something quite specific, right? So it's clouded, and the purpose is to confuse. So what he's saying, right, is he's going to cut Social Security, he's going to cut Medicare, he's going to take a look at anything that he can that's got money in it, and he's going to remove the money. And he's going to do it in what he believes is a bipartisan way, right? And so 2 days after this staffer made this quote, and he was a high-ranking staffer, the campaign comes out again and says that this is not a deviation from the campaign's stance. This is the platform and has been the platform, even though Donald Trump was publicly saying he was supporting Social Security. The thing to take away, right, is the shrouded element, right? Like you move people's eyes over here, and what you're really doing is over here. This guy's a little more direct. Ron Johnson, it's a legal Ponzi scheme, which is not only a butchering of the English language, it is also a complete misunderstanding of what Social Security is. And he's doing it because he's lying, right? He's trying to mislead. This guy in your backyard, Mike Gallagher, real funny guy. So awesome correlation between what we're doing and what some of the campaigns are doing around the state. So Tom Nelson called him out. There's this guy, Andrew Biggs. And Andrew Biggs thinks that, so that average, that $1,200 or almost $1,300 that an individual retired worker gets, this Biggs guy thinks you should cut it down to like $900, right? And has a very specific plan about how to do that, right? $900 a month. And Gallagher, on the stump in the primary, basically was asked, you know, how do you feel about Social Security? And he says, I like this Andrew Biggs guy's plan. And then came out again and verbally stated, he won't put it in writing, but he verbally stated that's basically his plan. So Nelson calls him out on it. And he basically says that's not my plan, and has been asked what is his plan, and doesn't say anything. So, the juxtaposition is sharp. Hillary Clinton, she is clearly better on this issue. She's got about a dozen points on her website. She's all about moving the cap upwards, which would, the income cap tax, which would allow Social Security to be viable for decades into the future. Also, a couple things here, opposes the efforts to raise the retirement age. She has made numerous statements about this, and also opposed reducing cost of living adjustments. So this year in the Social Security, you didn't get a cost of living increase. Or last year. And she is fundamentally opposed to that and has a plan to actually make that not occur again. And it's like detailed, right? Like as much as like Trump's statement is shrouded in secrecy and doesn't make any sense, and at the same time he's really saying he's going to cut it, Hillary's been direct. Social Security's a good thing. She wants it to stick around. And then it's increased the tax burden on higher income Americans while closing tax loopholes. That's all about the raising of the cap. What she's saying is that people that make over $118,000 a year, the amount of money that they make over, he said it time and again. 4 days after we printed that thing, we couldn't get it to him fast enough. He gladly signed it. And then Tom Nelson, a few weeks ago, he did, so in direct response to what Gallagher was saying on the stump about this Biggs guy, he did a tour, a tax Social Security tour across the district. Had a lot of people, did about 8 stops in a day, and is basically saying on the stump, not only do I want to protect Social Security, I want to expand it. Okay. Questions? Okay. So the last piece is just this. So we operate on 3 assumptions, right? Social Security is a good thing. We want our people coming after us to have it, and we're willing to take action. So there's a couple of places that you can take action. A lot of you have already done it. You filled out your story. So Claiborne's collecting your stories about retirement security. That's one thing. 2, through that wall is the AFL's program. They've got postcards that you can write. We purchased a bunch of food for you all to eat and stay here if you'd like to help. They're willing to work with you on that. Phone calls, postcards, anything. Door knocks, I know that some of you can't do that, but there are many things that you can do. Second piece, call on Johnson to sign the pledge. So we're going to have an online petition that's going to be coming out that's going to ask people to sign the pledge that asks Ron Johnson to sign the pledge. And then the third, or fourth, depending on how you count it, is learning the presentation and taking it elsewhere. So we'll work with you on kind of crafting a presentation that you want to do with pieces of this or doing this, and then you would take it elsewhere. So, that's it. That's all we got. And we got food in there, so we should eat. Is that okay? Give yourselves a round of applause. For coming here today. All right. Awesome. Awesome. I'll go get Claiborne. And the food's right here.